I found love at my friend's wedding. I never thought I'd meet the love of my life in a place filled with white roses, soft jazz, and teary-eyed parents. Weddings had always seemed bittersweet to me, a beautiful beginning for others, yet a stark reminder of my solitude. But that's all changed one summer afternoon at my best friend's wedding. It was early June. The sun was generous, casting golden hues over the lush vineyards where the ceremony was set. Emily, my college roommate and best friend since freshman year, had finally found her person. She was marrying Jonah, a calm and collected architect she met during a rainy layover in Chicago. As her maid of honor, I had the honor and stress of organizing her bridal shower, keeping the peace among distant relatives, and ensuring the veil she'd inherited from her grandmother didn't fly away in the wind. His ceremony was set in an open field, draped in sheer white curtains that danced gently with the breeze. I arrived early, double-checking every flower arrangement, making sure the petals on the aisle were fresh and the seating tags were in perfect calligraphy. Emily was a vision in lace, her nerves hidden under a practiced smile. She squeezed my hand before walking down the aisle. "You ready?" I whispered. "More than ever," she beamed. The ceremony was magical. Vows were exchanged, laughter echoed, and as Jonah kissed his bride, the sun dipped slightly, casting a cinematic glow over everything. I wiped away a tear, proud and content. But as I turned to walk toward the reception, I nearly collided with someone. "Whoa, sorry about that," a deep voice said. I looked up, and there he was, tall, with broad shoulders, a smile that felt like sunrise. "No worries," I managed, suddenly aware of how my dress clung to the late afternoon heat. "I'm Williams," he said, offering his hand. "Maya," I replied, taking it. Warm, firm, a good handshake. I noticed he wasn't wearing a tie, just a slightly rumpled navy shirt with sleeves rolled up. He looked relaxed, charmingly out of place. We found ourselves sitting at the same table during dinner. Turned out Williams was Jonah's cousin from out-of-town Seattle, to be precise. He worked in environmental design, traveled frequently, and had a quiet sense of humor that made you lean in to catch the punchline. We talked about everything from the best coffee shops in Portland to the constellations we could see above the open vineyard. The night stretched on. There was dancing, clinking glasses, and heartfelt toasts. Emily, glowing in her newlywed joy, winked at me more than once as she noticed where my attention had drifted. At one point, Williams leaned over and said, "Care to dance?" I hesitated. I wasn't usually the first on the dance floor, but something about the way he asked, genuine, lighthearted, made it impossible to refuse. The music swelled into a slow rhythm. As we swayed under strings of fairy lights, I felt a strange sense of peace. He wasn't trying to impress me. He wasn't reciting some rehearsed line. He was just there, present, and so was I. After the wedding, we exchanged numbers. I expected a few polite texts, maybe a casual conversation that would fade as life resumed. But instead, we kept talking. He flew back to Seattle, but our messages turned into calls, and calls into weekend visits. Each time we met, it felt like rediscovering a book I didn't want to end. 3 months later, he invited me to a cabin near Mount Rainier. We spent the weekend hiking, cooking together, laughing over burnt toast, and misreading maps. On the second night, he gave me a handwritten letter. In it, he wrote, "I came to the wedding to celebrate love. I didn't know I'd find my own." Now, a year later, we're planning our wedding. Emily will be my maid of honor, of course. Sometimes, love shows up when you're not looking for it, in the middle of someone else's fairy tale, when your guard is down and your heart is open. That summer day, in the shade of white roses and dancing curtains, I found more than happiness for my friend Emily said, and I found my beginning, and I've never stopped dancing since. Long-distance relationships are like orchestras. Every note, every pause has to be perfectly timed. When Williams and I began dating across states, I thought the magic would fade into static. But somehow, it didn't. our conversations grew deeper. We'd FaceTime over dinner, share playlists, and surprise each other with little gifts, like the hand-painted mug he sent that said, "Good morning, sunshine," or the box of my favorite tea I mailed to him during a cold spell in Seattle. It wasn't all easy. There were miscommunications, moments when one of us was too tired to talk, days when I felt the ache of missing him down to my bones, but we learned, we grew, and we kept choosing each other. In October, he flew in for my birthday. I remember standing at the airport, nervous and giddy. When he walked out of the gate, flowers in hand, I ran to him, forgetting the people around us. That hug felt like coming home. We spent that weekend exploring the city like tourists. Williams took photos of me under autumn trees, caught me laughing mid-bite at a food truck, and made a goofy video of us singing loudly in the car. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. December came, and with it a surprise visit. Williams showed up at my apartment with a suitcase and a grin. "Thought I'd spend Christmas with you," he said. I blinked, stunned, then pulled him into a kiss. We decorated my tiny apartment with fairy lights and dollar store ornaments. We built a gingerbread house that collapsed and made snow angels in the park. One night, as we sat sipping hot cocoa and watching snowflakes gather on the window, he looked at me and said, "Do you ever think about the future?" "All the time," I answered, heart pounding. "Does it ever include me?" he asked. "Always." That was the first time we said "I love you," not with fanfare, but in the stillness of winter, wrapped in blankets and whispers. Spring brought a fresh wave of blossoms and a proposal. It happened on a hike. We were in Oregon, surrounded by wildflowers and misty hills. I was grumbling about muddy shoes when Daniel stopped, turned to me and held out a small box. This is probably the least glamorous proposal, but I didn't want to wait anymore. "Maya, will you marry me?" Williams asked. I burst into tears, nodding as I laughed. Yes, 1,000 times yes. We kissed as raindrops fell, and for a moment, the whole world disappeared. Our wedding is just 2 months away. Emily and I are finalizing the guest list, and Jonah is helping Williams pick out a suit. We're getting married in the same vineyard where we met. I walk there sometimes, imagining the fairy lights, the music, the moment I'll say, "I do." I still think about that summer afternoon often, how one twist of fate, one unexpected bump in the crowd, led me to the love of my life. They say weddings are about celebrating love, but sometimes they're about discovering your own. Our wedding day. The morning of our wedding, I woke to sunlight streaming through linen curtains. My heart was calm, not racing with nerves, but filled with anticipation. Emily arrived with pastries and pep talks, and we got ready together. Laughter, mascara smudges, and memories stitched into every movement. The ceremony began just as the sun dipped below the hills. White roses lined the aisle again, and soft music filled the air. As I walked toward Williams, everything else disappeared. There he was, my love, my future, the reason I now believed in fairy tales. Our vows were personal. William spoke of the day we met, of our midnight calls and handwritten letters. I spoke of the peace he brought into my life, the joy I hadn't known I was missing. When we kissed, the guests cheered and the stars blinked to life overhead. At the reception, Emily gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry. Jonah followed, adding his quiet sentiment. Then, Williams and I danced, just like we did that first night, under fairy lights, this time as husband and wife. A year has passed. We live in a small house with a blue door and a garden. Williams insists on overwatering. We argue sometimes about dishes and how to fold laundry, but we laugh more. We travel, we build, we dream. Love didn't end at the wedding, it only began. It lives in morning coffee, shared playlists, and tired hugs after long days. It's not just a spark, it's a steady flame. And every June, we visit the vineyard where it all began. We walk the aisle again, hand in hand, under white curtains and endless sky. Because sometimes love finds you when you're least expecting it, and sometimes it starts with a dance. If this story touched your heart, and for more emotional love stories, subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thank you.